There's a big news story which has caught the internet by storm this past week and has a lot of people a bit nervous and on edge. On August 23rd, which is just 2 days after the big solar eclipse spectacle across the heartland of America, FEMA and other government agencies are going to conduct an exercise called Earth EX 2017. This is a joint exercise by the federal government to make preparations in anticipation of mass power outages across the United States, which would occur as a result of a black sky event that would bring society to its knees. So what exactly do they mean by the term black sky event? I've provided a link in the description area under the video title which explains this exercise in more detail. But something is up here that is difficult to point a finger at. This would be a catastrophe possibly caused by human intervention, but most likely one that entails natural elements. In other words, a horrific event that would be considered to be outside the realm of human influence. As it turns out, the United States infrastructure is in disarray. It's in desperate need of major improvements, especially when it comes to the electrical grid. Virtually every business and institution relies on computer-generated technology to keep things organized and running smoothly. Without power, everything including food supplies and fuel would come to a complete standstill for months, maybe even years. Therefore, all organizations and institutions would need to be prepared for long-duration power outages. This type of event is all too plausible, which could be caused by a disaster that we see play out in films and documentaries. This type of event could also be implemented by organized groups that wish to do us great harm. The biggest question that arises from this type of scenario is why the federal government has been so slow to address the need for infrastructure improvements. What is the real reason why they refuse to address this problem? Some believe it has to do with something unimaginable that is anticipated to occur in our immediate future, thus eliminating any urgency to develop and improve the nation's infrastructure. This is one thought that certainly is in the realm of possibility. What is so odd with respect to the nature of this government exercise has to do with its timing, occurring just days after a major solar eclipse phenomenon. Is there something they are hiding, or is it just another coincidence? Whatever the reason, it can't be anything good. But like with everything else that seems odd and unprecedented, if it means something significant, time will tell. Because in time, all will be revealed. Which then puts Planet X squarely in the mix of possible reasons for the urgent need to conduct catastrophic disaster exercises that have the potential to affect the entire nation. It certainly is food for thought. The arrival of Planet X and the Nibiru Nemesis system introduces a series of implications that are not fully understood by the general public. This requires an in-depth explanation if we are going to get to the bottom of what is going on here on planet Earth. Have you heard of Operation Indigo Skyfold? Probably not if you are among the many individuals who primarily get their news and information from media organizations that are owned and operated by multi-billion-dollar corporations. But as it turns out, Indigo Skyfold is the most secret covert black operation in world history. It is the jewel of all black operations, and its purpose is actually threefold: to control weather, to implement warfare, and to cover up the existence of a second sun in our solar system. The operation was specifically designed to accomplish the latter of the three by the use of aerosol spraying during sunset and sunrise, which are the most available times of the day in which to observe the Nibiru system. The operation itself is concentrated in highly populated areas. So if you are situated close to an urban area, look towards the sun and you will more likely than not see and recognize what I am speaking of. Chemtrails, as they are referred to, consist primarily of the following chemicals: selenium, aluminum, thorium, and barium, processed into submicron particles and ionized with a special electric charge. Now, this operation is covert in its nature, so the pilots that are involved in the process are informed that the procedure is being initiated as a global warming greenhouse gas mitigation strategy. So in essence, the pilots are instructed to follow orders in a procedure that has the earmarking of a don't ask, don't tell policy. This is how the intelligence community operates on a need-to-know basis, restricting knowledge of an operation to just a handful of select people who are then responsible for the implementation of a number of black operations, such as the construction of deep underground bunkers, where they have access to special contractors for their top secret purposes. Another sinister purpose that involves chemtrailing, which is controversial, is its use by HAARP to create weather modification as a military tool. HAARP is a system that transmits microwaves into the ionosphere and our atmosphere to move jet streams from their normal positions, which in turn changes weather patterns. It can be labeled as a means to create warfare with enemy countries by producing severe drought and floods in designated areas. What is so disturbing about this is that there are still so many people who have no knowledge that this is happening, simply because there are too many distractions that keep people glued to mundane events, rather than what is really important for us to know and understand. If we were to focus our attention on important happenings around the world, we would develop a better sense of how our planet is changing, giving us a head start on preparing ourselves for the changes that are coming upon the earth. This is what I have attempted to instill in those who watch our video presentations, as many of you have indicated that you are now paying closer attention to the changes that are now taking place. To illustrate my hypothesis about the Earth changes taking place, let's examine the recent Earth events that transpired within the last few months. Last summer, a massive earthquake and a series of large magnitude aftershocks devastated numerous towns in central Italy. The question that is often posed is whether this disaster was related to Planet X getting closer or just another normal Earth event. If you inject my hypothesis into the equation, you are always going to have a number of naysayers and skeptics who will scoff at the notion of a Planet X culprit, because to them it does not exist, except in the mind of those who know and understand. Yet the scope of the earthquake in Italy was unprecedented, as this raw drone footage describes. In the wake of this devastation, we have witnessed a series of incredibly powerful earthquakes in Indonesia, New Zealand, Chile, and the Pacific Islands, just to name a few. And again, I ask, is this the result of Planet X or just a coincidence? Take a look at this chart of the magnitude of earthquakes in 2016. A pattern of the number and intensity of the earthquakes is developing in the last decade. As investigators and observers, the best way to tell when things seem abnormal on the planet is to monitor the weather. I am certain from all of my many years of observation that our planet is in the grasp of a severe wobble, which in turn has a profound effect on our weather. With all of the mysteries surrounding the Planet X Nibiru system and the influx of confusing misinformation, it is difficult to predict an arrival time frame. So the only thing left for us to do is to prepare by monitoring the world's erratic weather and the number and magnitude of Earth changes now taking place. The more extreme these events become will give us a better indication of how close Planet X Nibiru is moving towards Earth. One of the best indicators of its arrival is to observe the number of meteors passing Earth or the frequency of them hitting the Earth's surface as meteorites. There is also the concern about new censorship on matters pertaining to our general safety and security. Do you recall the most recent mainstream media report on the discovery of Planet 9 in January of 2016? It was all over the news at that time. Well, in case you haven't noticed, the story has died a sudden death. They rather have you focused on politics, terror attacks, and anything that will distract your attention away from what you should be focused on, which is your survival, which according to a number of prognosticators could be later this year. But of course we have heard that before. Nevertheless, something disconcerting is happening on planet Earth and with the planets of our solar system. And it will be in our own best interest to keep our eyes open and better prepared if and when things begin to go south. The Nibiru Nemesis system is closing in on Earth, and evidence suggests that Nibiru and its adjoining moon are the red and blue Kachina, just as the Hopi Indian nation had described it in their prophecies and also in their address to the United Nations towards the end of the 20th century. Its meaning is as powerful today as it was back then. Is the blue Kachina of Hopi prophecy coming to fruition? There have been recent sightings of its presence in the sky. These images of what looks to be an exoplanet photographed over Perth, Western Australia on August 2nd would seem to indicate that something of great significance is approaching, as the Hopi nation had prophesied would come upon us in the latter days to cleanse and purify the earth. These images are incredibly similar to ones captured from Argentina on August 3rd. If this is the blue star according to prophecy, then its fulfillment will come to pass. This is also why the Vatican's Lucifer telescope is watching the encroaching system. Just think about this for a moment. What purpose does the monitoring of the heavens by the Catholic hierarchy play in their future prospects, if not to help in their survival? There are some in the Planet X community of prognosticators who, through their own formula for observation and time analysis, have concluded that 2017 will be the year of the comet, the planet that Carlos Ferrara called the Comet Planet. So much emphasis has been placed on the great sign in the heavens. Not only is it getting brighter, but it is also getting closer, almost as if it had developed a wingspan. There is nothing outside of our sun that outshines the presence of this planet. Therefore, something is beginning to take shape that has many of us bewildered and confused because we can't put a time frame on when the great changes will come to fruition here on planet Earth. The increased magnitude of anomalies are an indication that great changes are happening from the sky. The presence of extraordinary beams of light called anti-crepuscular rays that appear from the opposite direction of the sun has sparked much interest as reports of their appearance continue. Take a look at this video capture from early August 2017 as these beams of light appear from the east during sunset, with the moon as a backdrop. There are strange things happening on this planet that have yet to be fully explained. Rivers turning to blood is a phenomenon that some say is a sign of the end of days as described in the Old Testament, or even an indication of the effects of climate change where harmful toxins have infiltrated the waterways, causing them to become impure. Whatever the cause, it has become much more prevalent now with severe implications for the wildlife that inhabits these bodies of water. Take a look at the Babylon River in Sumatra as it turns blood red on August the 7th, killing thousands of fish. In South America, the ocean mysteriously receded from the beaches across Uruguay and Brazil, causing many to fear that a tsunami was on its way. On August 11th, the water disappeared in Punta del Este, Uruguay, as shown in these images. Several hours later, on August the 12th, the same strange phenomenon occurred along the beaches in Porto Alegre in Brazil. Ocean waters recede ahead of a tsunami, which provides a warning to those in harm's way to move inland to safer locations. So when people observed this phenomenon, it was totally understandable that they would fear the arrival of a massive wave. With no apparent signs of a large quake or tsunami in these locations, such widespread receding of the ocean is unprecedented and very worrisome. The phenomena continues along the coast of Brazil, where on August 13th, the waters receded for a considerable distance in this coastal community, as shown here. While historical receding is occurring along the Atlantic side of South America, the Pacific side is experiencing huge waves crashing ashore, as shown here in Chile. It may be that these phenomenal events are linked. Most disconcerting is the possibility that the oceans working in opposition could be a sign of a pole shift in the works. I encourage you to visit our Facebook page for the latest images and video posts on the Planet X system and other incredible events related to climate and earth changes that are happening now. We devote a considerable amount of time in providing information that we believe will be of benefit to our subscribers and viewers across the internet. So please take a moment out of your schedule to check us out, leave us a message, or share anything you feel important with our social media community. In the meantime, stay safe, be mindful of your surroundings, and keep looking to the skies.